Once I assumed the role of a caregiver for Edward, a 65-year-old man with a developmental disability. His daughter, Catherine, reached out to me due to her night shifts, necessitating someone with medical expertise to care for her father. Unbeknownst to me, this single night of work would leave an indelible mark on my memory. Catherine's decision to contact me may have stemmed from difficulty finding alternative family members to watch over Edward, or perhaps financial constraints prevented her from considering a nursing home. Nevertheless, my experience as a direct care worker for individuals with developmental disabilities made me feel equipped for the task at hand. That night, Catherine provided me with insight into Edward's nocturnal habits, emphasizing his potential for confusion and wandering, symptoms of his dementia. Despite feeling prepared, I soon realized that nothing could prepare me for the events that transpired. As Catherine left for work earlier that day, I found myself juggling multiple responsibilities, pushing myself to the limit of exhaustion. Edward greeted me warmly as Catherine introduced us before retiring to his room. Around 9:00 p.m., she warned me about Edward's propensity to wander during the night. I spent the initial hours in the living room, attempting to relax and catch up on a TV show. However, the sound of footsteps from upstairs prompted me to check on Edward. Calling out his name, I received no response, only the distant closing of his bedroom door. I brushed it off, assuming he had gone to the bathroom, and returned to my show. Approximately an hour later, I ventured into the kitchen for a snack. As I exited the kitchen, I encountered a startling sight: Edward standing at the doorway, shattering the glass. Despite my attempts to check on him, I was met with screams of confusion. It became evident that the night was rapidly spiraling out of control. After reassuring Edward of my role, I managed to guide him back upstairs, calming him with water and melatonin. Exhausted, I sought rest in the spare bedroom Catherine had mentioned. However, my sleep was interrupted by repetitive slamming sounds from downstairs. Rushing to investigate, I discovered Edward repeatedly opening and closing the oven in the dark kitchen. Startled, I called out to him, but he remained silent as he retreated upstairs. The spare bedroom provided a brief respite until I was awoken by a noise from the closet. Upon investigation, I was met with the chilling sight of Edward holding a kitchen knife. Panic ensued as I pleaded with him to drop the knife, but he advanced towards me, swinging the blade. Fearing for my safety, I escaped outside, contacting Catherine instead of the police as per her request. Upon Catherine's return, the chaos seemed to subside, with Edward peacefully asleep. Despite the unsettling events, I chose not to disclose the details of my sleep to avoid further blame. Nevertheless, I made the decision to refrain from returning to work in that house. Edward's dementia-driven actions had proven to be the most challenging encounter in my 9 years as a direct care worker. It was my first day as a plumbing apprentice for a company that had 5 employees, and the owner assigned tasks to each worker. Coincidentally, my first job led me to a distant, rundown house in a questionable area. The task? Fixing a leaky pipe under the sink, a seemingly routine job but not without its eerie twists. Upon arriving, I faced an unsettling scene, a dilapidated house that appeared uninhabited for years. The owner, a middle-aged man named Marcus, welcomed me with an oddly wide smile and a high-pitched voice that didn't match his appearance. The absence of furniture indicated recent occupancy, but something felt off. We ventured into the kitchen, where I set my tools on the counter and inspected the sink. As I slid under to examine the pipes, Marcus hovered over me, an uncomfortable proximity that made my skin crawl. Politely asking for some space, he complied but maintained an unsettling presence. Upon closer inspection, I found no sign of a water leak. Confused, I tried running the faucet, only to discover no water flowing. Marcus casually mentioned he might have accidentally shut off the main water valve. Perplexed, I asked how one could make such a mistake. His nonchalant response heightened my suspicion. When Marcus left to turn the water back on, I heard footsteps upstairs. an unusual location for a water valve. Concerned, I gathered my belongings and hastily left. Despite my imposing stature, an instinctive unease urged me to flee, especially when multiple sets of footsteps echoed from above. I made a swift exit, driving away from the unsettling house. Later, I informed my boss Dave, suggesting it might be a prank. However, further investigation revealed the house was vacant and abandoned. The caller's number turned out to be a voice over IP, adding to the mystery. Unsettled by the encounter, I reported it to the local police, ensuring they were aware of the suspicious activity. That peculiar part of town remained off my radar, and my stint with that plumbing company lasted only about a year, with no reason to revisit the eerie memories of that peculiar house. In 2019, I started working for a pizza joint to earn some college funds. It was my first night, and I found myself accompanied by the manager on a delivery, along with another trainee. The order was for 4 large pizzas and 2 bottles of soda. Little did we know, this routine delivery would turn into a chilling experience. The house we were headed to was situated in a desolate area, far from town. As we approached, the sight of the 2-story home sent shivers down our spines. The paint was chipping and some windows were boarded up, a place that seemed uninhabitable. Despite our reservations, our manager urged us to complete the delivery. Upon arrival, the eerie atmosphere heightened. The other trainee and I hesitated to approach the front door, feeling an unusual tension. The manager dismissed the trainee's concerns about being watched, assuring us it would be a quick interaction. With a sense of trepidation, I rang the bell. No response. We knocked harder, growing increasingly impatient. A peculiar smell lingered, adding to the unsettling ambiance. Finally, the door cracked open, revealing only part of the occupant's face. He inquired about our purpose, and our manager mentioned the pizza delivery. The man welcomed us inside, his overly friendly demeanor sending chills down our spines. As he left to retrieve the payment, I glanced around the empty house, devoid of furniture, with only a couple of blankets on the floor. It became apparent that the man was living there, a homeless soul seeking shelter. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from upstairs, stirring discomfort among us. The realization dawned that someone might have been watching us. Our manager shouted to inquire about the payment, but the only response was silence. The unsettling stillness enveloped us. In a swift turn of events, our manager decided to check the back, while instructing us to stay put. Baffled, the other trainee and I heard footsteps, not from above but below, a perplexing and uneasy revelation. Then the tranquility shattered as our manager sprinted back, instructing us to return to the car urgently. He recounted encountering a group of people around a small makeshift campfire, callously laughing at a baby deer in the middle. The realization hit hard. We had stumbled upon something far more sinister. Without a second thought, we left the job, parting ways with the pizza delivery world. The eerie encounter turned out to be a near brush with a cult meeting, and the 3 of us decided it was best to distance ourselves from that dark chapter.